We picked the best team from each Power 5 conference and the worst team. Let's go ahead and start in the ACC right there. You have Clemson as your best and Virginia as your worst. So we agree on that one. You know, we went back and forth, Cone. Obviously, you can't put Georgia Tech on there now. They've won a couple. It seems like they left Jeff Collins out the door and somebody found the winning tree. But we talked about Virginia Tech maybe, but that one conference win for Virginia Tech kind of put them over the top.
It was a toss-up between Virginia and Virginia Tech, and with Brennan Armstrong at Virginia being a better quarterback, I thought that, you know, maybe Virginia Tech should go on that list, but you're exactly right. They at least have one conference win at Virginia Tech to show on the schedule.
Without a doubt, and of course, I didn't mention Syracuse earlier in the ACC game, but they play Clemson this weekend, so
they're right there.
To find that out. They are right there. Boomer, what are your thoughts on Syracuse? Any shot to go into Clemson to be able to win?
No, I don't. I love what Syracuse has done. I'm going up there for a game here in a couple of weeks just to check out the dome and everything. But this is a terrible mismatch for Syracuse. I mean, they've had a lot of things bounce their way to get to 6-0. So I just think it's 11 a.m. game, but I just think they're outmanned. Almost at every single skill position. So I don't think this game will be close on Saturday.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awfully physical, but I think Syracuse getting away from the dome and going to play somewhere else, I think they finally get that first loss. But let's go to the Big Ten here, Coney. Boomer has Ohio State number 1 and Northwestern as the worst team. Let's go ahead and put our 2 picks up there for the Big Ten as well. I believe we a little bit different. We had, let's see, in the Big Ten, we had Michigan, all right, as our best team, and our worst was Northwestern. Obviously, the argument here is going to be Ohio State and Michigan. And Blaine, I want to give you some credit because going back and I watched a little bit of that game yesterday, and I've watched Ohio State. Ohio State has not played a team that's currently ranked in the AP Top 25, but we know they're good. We know Ohio State's good. We know they have really good players. That wide receiver room, I mentioned TCU yesterday in Tennessee. We've been talking about the Ohio State wide receiver room the whole year. Jigba getting back healthy, Marvin Harrison Jr., guys like that we know are super talented with C.J. Stroud. But I feel like Michigan right now is a more physical team, Blaine, that you brought that up. And you looked at the way they pushed Penn State around.
Well, I always... When it comes down to looking at teams like that who are somewhat equally matched in a lot of ways, I always go to up front, especially on the offensive line. And right now, Michigan is playing, if not the best ball up front. They physically dominated Penn State, who's not just a bunch of scrubs walking out. Penn State is known, especially on their defense. Go back to that Auburn game. They physically beat up Auburn on both sides of the ball, but it's another level, it's another extension of kind of what you see in Big Ten ball. But Michigan, if you can run the ball and stop the run, I don't care who you're playing, and you can play with anybody. Ohio State's a lot of flash. It's pretty. They're the prettiest girl at the dance, but then you realize 5 years later you really don't like her. Michigan, probably a 7.5. An 8 who can cook well, cleans the house.
I don't like hearing all this. I like Michigan as the underdogs more. I'm going to defy the odds. I'm going to side with Boomer. I think the Buckeyes put them number 1 in the Big Ten. I am not going to be the one. I am not going to be the one to jinx this season for Michigan. Okay?
Yeah, you're Dak Prescott right now.
Yeah, you're Dak Prescott really hard right now.
But mostly it just comes down to the big win, right? A huge win over a top 10 opponent. The Buckeyes really don't have that, especially since Notre Dame has underperformed since that Week 1 victory for the Buckeyes. But I still think that they're playing some of the best football in the country. Boomer, I had them at number 1 last week, just like you did, after we saw Georgia falter a little bit in those 2 games against Missouri and Kent State. But I can't wait for November 26th.
I can't either. It's going to be an absolute fist fight.
That game, the Big Ten is weak this year. It's really Ohio State, Michigan. You look at Big Noon Kickoff, they basically rotate going to Ohio State and Michigan games. But I think if that Michigan-Ohio State game, if it gets into a shootout, can J.J. McCarthy keep up with C.J. Stroud in that offense? That's what I don't know. I don't know if they can. But it'll be up to them to keep it physical.
Two things, Boomer.
Off the field.
Two things that you want to do if you're Michigan to keep it from getting into a shootout. One, keep running the ball effectively, right? So that you lower the number of possessions, keep the clock ticking. And two, don't be surprised if we see some elements in the weather late in the season, just like we did last year. That benefited Michigan in the Big House last season when it was snowing. That helped their run game out. That kept C.J. Stroud from being able to throw the football all around the yard. Keep in mind, this game is going to be played the Saturday after Thanksgiving. It's going to be cold, might be windy, might be rainy. We'll see.
I feel like this game should be played in Toledo every year.
In Toledo?
I feel like it should.
And Toledo gets to be in whichever state wins that.
That's exactly right.
I know the Big Ten is weak, but Illinois is a good football team.
Illinois is a great story. They were my surprise at the beginning of the year. All right, let's go to Big 12 here. We are actually exactly the same on this one, Boomer. TCU and Iowa State. And it's funny, you watch Iowa State and you look at the score. They're definitely the best of the worst teams when you look at this kind of our list combined together. They run that 3-3-5 that causes so many problems. I mean, hell, they had Texas searching for answers and kind of had Quinn Ewers a little bit off kilter when they played Texas on the road to almost beat them last weekend. But TCU, Sonny Dykes coming over from SMU. They're putting up big-time points with Max Duggan, that wide receiver room. We've talked about him a lot. But I do think the TCU defense is good enough to keep them in some of these games here late, because the stretch is not easy on the back end. It typically isn't for anybody, but for TCU, Boomer, I mean, did anybody really see this coming after Gary Patterson left last year?
No, I mean, I know me and you didn't, because I know TCU put out a hype video last week, and there's a clip of you saying that TCU won't be good this year, and there's a clip of me saying that TCU's going 3-9 this year. So it's pretty funny, but yeah, I didn't think Sonny Dykes would come in and have this kind of success. I mean, just based on his experience at Cal, I didn't think they'd put it together this quickly. But that offense is talented. Those wide receivers are some of the best in the country, and Duggan with his ability to run the ball and pass. I mean, they're dangerous on offense. And yeah, you're right. Their defense is good enough to get stops. This K-State game on Saturday night is going to be huge.
Oh, it's going to be massive. That's one of my favorite ones, or the ones I'm looking forward to the most.
I have a question about Iowa State real quick. How is it that, I know Matt Campbell's a good football coach, but how is it that every time there's a coaching vacancy, Matt Campbell's name gets mentioned for one of these huge jobs, but I never see the performance on the field from Iowa State?
So here, to me, is the trick. You see this happen with coaches sometimes. They'll go to a place that may not have the best tradition of winning, or they're a place that we view as hard to win, and they have a few successful years early, and their name just gets catapulted up into this category, and it doesn't leave. Because, again, Iowa State wants to win. I get it. That they'll fill that place up, and they'll be loud. I've been to Ames, coached in the state. But there's not super high expectations there. So Matt Campbell was a name, obviously, when he came to Iowa State. You look at the tree, who he was under, and where he came from. They were kind of preparing him to be a big-name head coach. Goes to Iowa State, has some success early in a place where you hadn't seen a ton of success. Hell, Gene Chizik got hired away from Iowa State to Auburn after going 3-19 or 3-16, something like that, 6-19, something crazy. So Matt Campbell goes in there, has success early as a young guy. Name just gets super elevated. And you're right. Every time, when Notre Dame was open, we were hearing all these big time places that are open that we're hearing it. I think he is overrated. I think he had a few good years. He is a good coach, but he is not an elite coach. I don't think he's this guy that everybody builds him up to be.
Mid. He's mid. He's 45. He's 45 and 38.
45 and 38 at Iowa State.
I mean, it's mediocre.
But I do
think Texas is the best team in the Big 12.
You think Texas is the best?
You think Texas?
Yeah, I do.
Really? And that game's still coming up, right?
This game will be at Texas. TCU goes to Texas this year.
Gotcha.
And let's go. No, Texas Tech loss. Let's look back. I don't think Quinn was back for that.
Nope.
No, Quinn was not back for that. And I know you're having close games, close wins. Basically an Iowa State guy dropped a wide open pass to lose a game against Texas. But these are how all the games are in the Big 12. When teams like this, especially in the upper echelon, when they meet each other, it's usually going to be a one-possession game. We saw that with TCU, Ohio State. We'll probably see that with TCU, Kansas State. Oklahoma State, excuse me. I still think I lean on Quinn Ewers as being the best quarterback. I know Max Duggan is doing great, but give me Steve Sarkisian schematically, absolute witch. And that game is at Texas.
Yeah.
So I feel like Texas, and I know it sucks you lost to Texas Tech without your starting quarterback. Hudson Card played okay, but I still think Texas wins that game, and they walk in with 2 losses.
All right, boom. Let's get to the SEC. We disagree here. You've got Tennessee, number 1, which I think there's a good argument for that. And obviously, we both had Vanderbilt at number 2. It's funny, the best and worst team are from the same state in yours. In ours, we have Georgia still as the best team and Vanderbilt as the worst. What put Tennessee over Georgia in your mind?
It's that offense. I mean, I don't see that when they play Georgia in, I think, a couple weeks here in Athens. I do not think that Georgia, they've got a good defense, not as good as last year. I think that Hendon Hooker is going to be able to put up points on this Georgia defense. And I don't know if Stetson Bennett and company on offense can keep up. I mean, it's going to be a balanced game. But I think right now, after Tennessee just beating Bama and with Georgia's struggles against Mizzou, and I know they didn't cover the spread against Kent State, I got to go with the Vols, Rocky Top. I mean, they're the talk of college football right now.
Yeah, I mean, they've navigated a pretty decent schedule, too, when you look at other teams.
Smoked LSU at home.
Yeah.
Well, LSU did a really good job losing that football game, too. But the only thing, this has Stetson Bennett hero card written in all over. Written all over.
Is this where he pulls the sword out of the stone again?
The first mistake from a guy who learned this is doubting Stetson Bennett in big-time moments, in big-time games. The only difference I see in this game at Georgia is Georgia's going to be able to get to Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
All right. They will, not like Bama did okay, not a great job of getting to Hendon Hooker, but Georgia, especially in the interior, will push that pocket into Hendon Hooker. So I want to see how Hendon plays when it comes to that. Georgia's going to be able to run the ball a lot, extremely well. They're going to slow the pace down. And Georgia has the best defense. Alabama's secondary has been sus all year. They've been sketchy all year. Go back to the Texas game. They've been sketchy. This Georgia secondary is good. This Georgia defense is good. Obviously not good as that NFL team that had out there last year. Yeah. But this game is at Athens. This game will be absolutely electric. And Tennessee, I'm worried because I don't know who Tennessee has this weekend. But
UT Martin.
UT Martin.
Okay. Well, they're going to win that game, but still, you're coming off such an emotional win against Alabama. You just can't let this be a one-time big game type of thing. So you have to, and that's when experience comes in with Hendon Hooker, which is huge. But Georgia's defense and Stetson Bennett going against the grain, being doubted, has a Georgia win written all over.
So you think even Bama having Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, you'll get a better pass rush for Georgia, but you're saying the pass rush is going to come from the interior.
Yeah, you're gonna push that pocket into Hendon, so then he has to start bouncing the pocket. And those easy,
the secondary Georgia is better than the one in Alabama.
And that'll create coverage sacks.
Exactly.
Because the guys will be covered more.
Hey, everybody, appreciate you checking us out. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. We're going to bring you guys great content all the time, and we are just getting started. We're growing like a weed, and it's because of you guys. Make sure you hit that like button, and we'll catch you on the flip side.